Hello. I'm very excited to talk to you about Ming's Christmas Wishes, a beautiful book that would also be a nice addition to your Diversity in Children's Literature holiday collection, which isn't always that easy to find in general, much less for holiday books. And this is by Susan Gong, illustrated by Masahiro Tatishi, and this is about a little girl who is the daughter of immigrants in the 1930s, and she's very unhappy. She has three wishes only. One of the wishes is to have an American Christmas, and another is to sing in a Christmas choir, and you'll have to read along with me to learn the third wish. But her mother is dead set against her having an American type Christmas, and she does experience some hardship with being able to sort of, amalgamate into this American custom while her parents are still trying to hold on to their old customs. So it's really a book thematically, about fitting in and acceptance during the holidays, respecting differences. And there are a lot of good opportunities for historical and cultural studies to base around this book for the holiday season. And I'll talk to you about that as we go. And this book is cute, and this is the neighborhood. This has key landmarks circa 1930 of where she lives, the town hall, the school. So it's kind of a neat little map. Nice addition. And this book does have some very lovely art indeed. Not this year, Mrs. Chatelain waved Ming off. Not this year, Ming repeated, her voice crying. Not last year, not the year before, not next year. You will never let me sing in the Christmas choir because I'm... What, headstrong, the teacher said, turning away. Chinese, Ming whispered. I wish I could be part of the choir. Ming caught sight of the clock. It was late. She knew she wouldn't have dinner ready on time. Mama would be angry. Isn't that kind of upsetting right up front, the prejudice due to her ethnicity, especially during this time period? Poor thing. Pictures are so gorgeous. I love this vintage picture with the cars, the storefront. We see Montgomery Ward, the Piggly Wiggly, a theater with John Wayne. You can see it says with John Wayne right in there. Isn't that amazing? Ming raced down streets aglow with colored lights. She whizzed past the library and movie theater, but at the department store window she stopped. Inside, stars, glass balls, and colored lights glittered on a Christmas tree. Wow, Ming whispered. So beautiful. I wish my family could have a Christmas tree. She stared at the dazzling tree. She thought. Anyone can have a Christmas tree. I just have to convince Mama. She pushed herself away from the window and sped home. Ming slipped into the warm kitchen. She pulled a bowl from the shelf and grabbed the flour scoop. She made Mama's favorite noodles, as fine as dragon whiskers. The family gathered for dinner. Noodles, Dee Dee squealed with anticipation. Baby Mei Mei giggled. You're late, Mama scolded Ming. Around the table, clicking chopsticks made the only sound. Mama reached for seconds. This was Ming's chance. I wish we could have a Christmas tree, she said. And this would be a good opportunity to discuss even different cuisines with your child. So if your child isn't familiar with Chinese food, this would be a good opportunity to talk about what people from the Chinese culture tend to eat as their staples for their main food. Silly idea, Mama said. Ming twirled noodles in her spoon. It would have to be fancy. Could we have candy, Dee Dee asked. Louis' family gets candy. No, Mama said emphatically. Christmas trees are not Chinese. No tree, no candy. But Mama, we're in America, Ming insisted. Every family here has a Christmas tree. Mama glared at Ming. No Christmas tree. Everyone froze. Finally, Pop said, what Mama says goes. He patted her hand. Mama, I have to visit the Lins tomorrow. I'll take Ming with me so she won't be in your way. Ming woke the next morning in velvety darkness. Outside ground frost shimmered. 10,000 stars in the great silver river glittered across a black sky. She dressed, lit the stove, lifted a pot to cook juk, rice porridge. She packed lunches in flat tin boxes. A whole day with Pop. She hoped it would be enough to help him understand why the family just had to have a Christmas tree. Don't you love the way the beautiful contrast to the bricks, the brick building to the blue sky, and how the window lights up? I love that. Pop pouted in. Morning, Butterfly. Ming placed the bowls of juk at the table. She shoveled food into her mouth, but Pop never hurried. After what seemed a timeless long time, he said, "Okay, Butterfly, let's go." Pop tossed a burlap bag in the back of their old truck. It landed with a clank. Ming climbed on the running board and slipped into the cab. Pop squeezed behind the wheel and turned the key. The old truck chugged eastward. Dawn crept across the valley, waking the oak and sage of the chaparral. Clouds huddled against the mountains ahead. Of course, again, talking to your child about what juk is. Maybe they'll want to try to make some. Look up a recipe. As the truck rumbled into the foothills, Ming spied a pine tree. "Hey, Pop, look." He said. The road got steeper. The engine groaned. Pop patted the dashboard to coax the truck forward. They crossed stone bridges. Firs and pines pressed thick and tall against the road. "That one's perfect," Ming pointed to a symmetrical fir. "Did I say we'd get a tree?" Pop asked. It began to snow. "Your grandfather called this his mountain," Pop said. Ming said. They rounded a corner. A village materialized in the snow. Pop turned the truck off the road and parked it in front of a shack. I think these pictures are really incredible with the fine powdered snow, the blues and purples and greens, the paintings. They look like paintings. I think the pictures are really amazing. The stairs creaked under Ming's feet. The door opened before Pop could knock. A toothless man looking like an immortal carved with a crooked branch greeted them. Pop bowed respectfully. The old man's eyes disappeared in a deep crease. "Old friend." "Uncle Lin," Pop said. "You remember my daughter?" He signaled Ming to bow. Uncle nodded and then called behind him, "Father." An even more ancient man huddled under a quilt on a bed in the corner. "Father," Uncle Lin shouted again. "Old Gong's son is here." "Your father was my best friend," Grandfather Lin's voice was as faint as an echo. Ming looked around the room. Intricate carvings decorated nearly every surface. Scaly dragons flanked the door. A phoenix perched on the lintel. Plum blossoms twisted around window frames. Rounded-faced children played on a tabletop. A pine tree sculpted by wind decorated the door. Grandfather Lin's whiskers fluttered as he snored. "The Lins came from our village with my father a long time ago," Pop said. "Grandfather Lin must be 90. He has stories about panning for gold." I think this is just stunning. The woodwork, the wood panels on the ceiling, the walls, the intricate carpet pattern, the kind of wooden carved and etched counters, kind of like those Chinese lock boxes. It must have taken the illustrator quite a long time to do that picture. Uncle Lin served tea and watermelon seed. They shared the lunch Ming had made. Afterward, Ming sucked on the salty seeds while the men talked about adventures from their past, eating dim sum in Hong Kong, rambling through Yosemite, hopping a summer train to Canada. And of course, you can talk to your child about what dim sum is. Again, bring in a lot of the Chinese culture and cuisine into your study for this book. They remembered waking to the rumble of San Francisco's great quake and escaping the terrible fire by fleeing to a pier. "We lost everything," Uncle Lin said. "Yes, but we started again," Pop said. They had cut their black braids to show support for revolution in China and had posed for photos to send their picture brides, the young women in China their families had arranged for them to marry. And again, this book has a lot of history reference to it. So talking about, you can bring in to talk to your child about the Great Wall of China. You can talk about picture brides, mail order brides, which really are a cultural thing throughout history in China. Men, why a lot of Chinese men traditionally had long hair and braids. There's a lot of historical and cultural learning you can share with your child from this book as a starter point. Your carvings grow more wonderful every year, Pop said. That pine tree is especially beautiful. Pines for long life, Uncle said, for strong character. Pop gestured toward the older man. If you two want to move to town, there's always a place for you with us. We're content, Uncle Lin said. Pop thanked the Lins for generations of kindness. Uncle smiled. We are forever in debt to the Gongs. Their voices were as comfortable as old silk. I'm taking Ming to the old grove, Pop said. Can you find it, Uncle asked. With my eyes closed, Pop said. Grandfather Lin whispered from the corner, Safe journey. May you live 100 years, Pop returned. White blanketed the world as Pop turned the truck from the main road onto a gravel path. Where are we going, Ming asked. Huh, Pop said. The truck chugged toward a grove of towering trees. Pop cut the engine. Oh, look at this snowy forest. The perspective in this painting is amazing. The artist did it of them looking down overhead, like looking down from you're in one of the trees. You can see them walking up the snowy path. The little girl and her father from the treetops with the snow. The perspective is very accurate. I love this illustrator. The trees stood so tall, their tops disappeared in swirls of snow. So enormous, they breathed a hush that filled the forest. So strong, they held up heaven. Ming ran her hand across the rough bark. She walked heel to toe around a tree. 92, 93, 94, she whispered, wah. Sequoias, Pop said. I've never... Oh, no, they've been here forever. I thought he was going to say I've never seen one. That's what I would think he would have said. I've seen them, actually, when I was a child. They walked deeper into the grove. Pop led Ming to a huge lopsided tree. He pointed to a hollow at its base. See? Ming spied a small wooden altar sheltered in the shadows. Where did that come from, she asked. Chinese miners left it here ages ago, Pop said. Kneeling, he took 2 incense sticks from his pocket. He lit one stick and placed it by the altar. Ming lit a second. I was 14 when I came from China, Butterfly. I worked with my father in San Francisco. When there was trouble, he brought me to this mountain. Here, he said, we are not foreigners. Here, we are men, a small part of nature's greatness. Grandfather's mountain, Ming said. Snow settled like a whisper on her shoulders. Isn't that lovely writing? Snow settled like a whisper on her shoulders. And this would be a good time to talk to your child too, now or during or after, about Chinatown, Chinatown's origins in San Francisco. Pop, Ming asked, when you light incense, what is in your heart? A wish, a prayer that my children will make their way. Who hears your prayers, Pop asked Ming. Guanyin, the goddess of mercy, I hope, or ancestors who will help my children. Ming hesitated. Pop, she said, I don't fit in at school and I don't fit in at home. What's going to happen to me? He sighed. You push too much, Butterfly. Pushing tips you off balance. Maybe you get hurt. Maybe you hurt somebody. Either way, pushing Mama won't make you happy. He looked deep into Ming's eyes. She is a good woman. But she pushes me, Ming said. Pop sighed. Hers is a hard story, Butterfly. Incense burned now. Embers cooled. And this right here would be the theme really to the whole book is I don't fit in at school and I don't fit in at home. What's going to happen to me? So if you can imagine, and this is again a good point of discussion for your child, what it might be like for someone that comes from a completely different country or background or culture to a brand new place where they're different than everybody, what it means to fit in, what it might feel like to not fit in, what things can be done to try to fit in. And these are all good brainstorming, philosophical even topics that would be good for any kind of a language arts lesson to incorporate into here or just even discussion. They retraced their steps through the trees to the truck. Pop pulled the burlap bag from the truck bed. Do you know what that is? Pop asked, pointing to a crooked tree at the edge of the grove. A sequoia, Ming suggested. No, he laughed. I'd never dig up a sequoia. Dig it up, but Mama said no Christmas tree. Ah, but this is not a Christmas tree, Pop said. This is a Chinese pine for long life. For strong character, Ming said. And I like this because it's a compromise between an American Christmas and a Chinese tree that has meaning to the culture in their family. That would be a compromise for Ming and for the family. And, part of that can go into a discussion about Chinese and how they celebrate Christmas, which I'll talk about in a minute. Pop pulled a small shovel from the bag. In his strong hands, the tool did its job quickly. They loaded their prize onto the truck, slipped into a cab, and rumbled down Grandfather's Mountain. Ming closed her eyes. "I wish," she whispered, "this day could last forever." Oh, the snowy mountains. I want to go there. Oh, and that's the end. May you have a wonderful Christmas. And here's her family. Here's a map of Mariposa Grove, Merced, California. El Porto. For the author, Susan Gong is a former teacher of Mandarin Chinese. She holds a BA in English Literature and an MA in Creative Writing. That's interesting. My father actually has a master's degree in Mandarin Chinese, and he went to work for the CIA and the NSA, actually, interpreting Mandarin Chinese. So again, beautiful book. And of course, it's a good portal point to enter into discussing with your child the Chinese. I mean, how do Chinese celebrate Christmas? And do the Chinese celebrate Christmas? And in fact, many of them do. Well, most Chinese people do not celebrate Christmas the way that we do in America, especially in rural and minority areas where Western and Christian influence, are minimal. It's not considered a public holiday in China. But China has adopted in some of the bigger metropolitan areas the commercial Christmas that they say we have. They do celebrations, and they do gifts, and they do parties, and they do shows. You'll hear Christmas music around some of the big cities that time of year. They do extra shopping, that you do see Christmas decorations. Most people who celebrate Christmas in China do it as a happy occasion to celebrate family, for get-togethers of friends. So in studying this with your child, of course, depending on the age of your child, there's internet research. You can get some more books on Christmas in China for your child. You can maybe print some articles. Maybe you can find some things on YouTube, but you can look up, Chinese Christians. There are Chinese Christians in China, smaller amounts of them, that do celebrate it strictly for the religious holiday as it relates to, the Christian origins of Christmas. But they do have special church services at limited capacity and in certain parts of China. And so studying, Christmas traditions in China, basically it's kind of split. It's a mixture. Some that do, some that don't, some do only a certain way. And so you can get into all of this with your child, which is a great way to study. And in those that do, you could do the research with your child about what specifically do they do for a Chinese Christmas? What kind of foods do they have for their regular food, much less for their Christmas holidays? And which parts, if you're looking at some maps of China, which parts of China do celebrate and which parts don't, and why. So there's so many ways you can take this book. But really, I love the book because it's great for the diversity collection. And it also has a historical reference. I love the 1930s background. And I think it's really just an amazing book to show that it is possible to compromise with others that make it hard for you to fit in.